Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It is Wednesday, and you know every Wednesday we discuss your Bulls hot takes from the week. So if you're new to the channel, feel free to leave your hot takes below in the comments to be featured in next week's video. But without a long drawn out intro, let's get into the takes for this week. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Our first take comes to us from Jake from State Farm. And I included this one because evidently I missed it from last week, but this was in response to my video from Monday where I discussed the ridiculous takes from a few analysts on NBA's The Jump, in which they claim the Bulls won't even make the play-in. And Jake from State Farm says if any other team had these players, ESPN would be sucking them off. Well, I don't know about any other team. I think if some of the very small markets had the Bulls or had the players that the Bulls have, they would still probably be a little critical, like if it was the Sacramento Kings had these players or say the Cleveland Cavaliers. But I 100% agree with you that if most of these teams across the NBA had the players on this Bulls roster, yeah, they would likely be talking about how great this team is and how this team is due for a deep playoff run. Like if this was the Knicks or the Lakers, or even the Miami Heat, a team that has essentially made very similar moves by going all in on players who likely won't even get them a title, then they would be praising the front office and talking about how they love these aggressive moves. Again, I don't know what it is about ESPN, but they really have something against the Bulls organization. I'm sure some of it is, skepticism of how they'll actually do because of the old front office. To be honest, even us as Bulls fans, it's been quite a few years where we felt we were going to be good, or at least make the playoffs. Last season, case in point, and the Bulls disappointed, but I do agree that for some reason these national media outlets seem to have it out for the Bulls, and if this was another team, they wouldn't be critiquing it as much. Next up, we've got Spuddy, and this is from the Discord, which, quick plug, if you'd like to join the Bulls Central Discord, it is linked in the description. It is always free to join. But the take is, if the Bulls finish as the 11th seed, it wouldn't be all that bad. We would have our pick, and this year is a stacked draft class in all positions. While it would be really bad, it wouldn't be all that bad. If there were going to be a year to bottom out, it would be this year. No, it would be bad. It would be really, really bad if the Bulls finish with the 11th seed, regardless of the fact that we have our first round pick this upcoming year. No, a team as talented as the Bulls have, with the additions of Lonzo Ball and DeRozan to go alongside Lavine and Vucevic, it would be inexcusable and embarrassing if the Bulls can't even make the play-in tournament. Now, I don't know much about this year's upcoming draft class, but either way, I'm not focused on the draft. Like, yes, it'll be nice for the Bulls to actually have their first round pick this year, but if the Bulls finish 11th in the East, you're talking about a difference of possibly the 8th pick versus, say, the 16th pick if they were to make the playoffs, depending on where they end up finishing in the standings. So no, it would be very, very bad if the Bulls finish 11th in the East. Next up, we've got Davey. DeMar DeRozan shows his true self and has a bad year, while Lonzo becomes an all-star type player, averaging 15 plus and 10 plus assists, while also rebounding about 7 to 8 boards a game. I'm not sure what you mean by DeMar showing his true self, and therefore that means he's going to have a bad year. I guess that means you're implying that DeRozan isn't as good as some people think he is. Either way, I disagree on that point. I think DeRozan will actually have a very solid season, maybe a slight dip in productivity, but that will be more of a product of circumstance of playing next to two other guys who can score over 24 points per game in Lavine and Vucevic. As far as Lonzo, I get why Bulls fans are excited about Lonzo, and I do think that he elevates this team considerably with his defense and playmaking, but I highly doubt he's going to be an all-star next season. And yes, I can see him averaging around 15 and 10 because I do expect his assist numbers to go up, playing alongside three primary scorers and also playing in a different role where he will be the primary ball handler and floor general, unlike this past season in New Orleans. But to say he's going to average around 7 or 8 rebounds, yeah, no, that's a pretty big stretch considering he only averaged 4.8 rebounds last season, and going from that to say 8 rebounds a game is a significant jump when you factor that in over the course of 82 games. Next, and a similar take actually, that's why I wanted to put these two together, we've got Reno Barte. Lonzo Ball will be the best player on the Bulls. The best on the Bulls, and be an all-star. He can average 15 points per game, 9 assists per game, and 2 steals per game. The Bulls will be a 4 or 5 seed. So I think any of these things that you mentioned could be true, and I wouldn't be surprised if they happened, except Lonzo will not be the best player on the Bulls. Lonzo better than Zach LaVine? Lonzo better than Nikola Vucevic? Lonzo better than DeMar DeRozan? No, that's not happening. Next, we've got Osvaldo Ochoa. Coby White will be in the starting lineup by the end of the year. Well, the only way that happens is if Lavine or Lonzo get hurt, and I sincerely hope that doesn't happen. There's no way that Coby White beats out Lavine or Lonzo Ball for a starting spot on this team, which I assume is what you're implying here. There just isn't any other way around it, unless for some reason Lonzo Ball grossly underperforms and regresses in some way where the Bulls are just forced to put Coby in the starting lineup as a result, which that is a huge problem if that ends up being the case, considering the big contract the Bulls just gave Lonzo. But that's really the only way I see Coby being in the starting lineup by the end of the season, really between those two scenarios. Next up, and this is a bit of a long one, we've got Shino. Lauri will end up signing the qualifying offer and be a Chicago Bull next year. He will average 18 points per game off the bench as the primary scoring option for the second unit. As Coby White makes his return, Kristaps Porzingis goes down via AK's magic and is expected to miss the rest of the year. The Mavs, now in desperation, are in need of a scoring big to replace Porzingis. AK, being the wizard he is, knew this would happen, so he fleeces the Mavs, trading Lauri for Dorian Finney-Smith, Moses Brown, and a lottery-protected first. I love it. I mean, I still think at the end of the day, it's incredibly unlikely that Lauri will be going to take the Bulls qualifying offer, that he would sign that. I think ultimately he will be moved by way of a sign and trade before the season begins, but who knows? Maybe even by the time you're watching this, Lauri has already been moved. But in the event that Markkanen does in fact sign the Bulls qualifying offer and stays with the Bulls, I mean, it is possible that Lauri, because he knows he didn't get what he wanted in free agency, he knows this is his chance to prove his worth on a qualifying offer and about to be an unrestricted free agent next offseason, it's possible he does ball out, although I find it very unlikely he averages 18 points per game coming off the bench, but he could play well enough knowing he's playing for a contract. And you're not too far off in Porzingis getting injured, since he always gets injured. And if that were to happen to the Mavericks, yeah, they would get desperate. And since Lauri is playing well and his trade value is much higher, I mean, the trade package isn't that far off. I would say that it's probably still way too much for Lauri Markkanen, even if he does improve this upcoming season. Maybe if it was just Finney-Smith and Moses Brown, but certainly not a first-round pick to go with it as well. That's just not going to happen. But I like the thought process though, and you're right. Who knows, maybe, holding on to Lauri and seeing if his trade value goes up near the trade deadline next season works out better for them in the long run. Next up, we've got James Nieto. Bulls should bring back the GOAT himself, backed by Kevin Durant and Zach, Antonio Blakeney. Man, I completely forgot about Blakeney until I saw him playing in the Summer League. No, I mean, I know Blakeney can get some quick points, but not the smartest player, takes bad shots, not efficient, doesn't really fit the Bulls and what they need coming off the bench. Next up, we've got iBest25. Bulls trade Coby and Lauri to the Hornets for Miles Bridges and a future first. So I've actually been seeing a lot of people talking about throwing in Coby White into a package for a sign and trade for Lauri Markkanen, and it is intriguing because both Coby and Lauri could get you decent value, being that they're both young players who still have upside potential, who can get great offense for you. They're great offensive players, and a team that is in need of offense could certainly use them. Not sure I see the Hornets wanting this though, if it includes Miles Bridges and a first round pick. I don't think, that Coby would really fit all that well on the Hornets, given the fact that they have LaMelo Ball and Terry Rozier in the backcourt, but then again, you could also say that about the Bulls, given the Bulls now have the other Ball brother and Lavine in the backcourt. I would actually like Miles Bridges on the Bulls though, as a great backup wing for them. I think people forget that he was nearly a 50-40-90 player last season despite only playing 30 minutes a game. I mean, the guy shot 50% from the field, 40% from three, and near 87% from the free throw line. I would love to have that kind of efficiency for the Bulls coming off the bench. Next up, we've got Esteban. 2016-17 Bulls with Butler, Wade, Rondo was a better team than DeRozan, Lavine, and Vucevic will be. How wrong am I? Well, you would be very wrong, in fact. First of all, that team wasn't that great, and part of the reason for that was they didn't fit well together in the fact that Wade and Butler, although both great players, had little to no outside shooting and very similar plays in a number of regards in terms of their defense and slashing to the hoop. Rondo, although yes, did well in the playoffs because it's Rondo and he was incredibly underwhelming in the regular season, but he's playoff Rondo, right? And let's not forget that Wade was past his prime. And so was Rondo. So if we're going to do a straight comparison, well, first of all, DeRozan is better than Chicago Bulls D Wade. Butler, although I would argue at least at the time and at his age in the 2017 season, is probably better than Lavine, but they're pretty close. And you could easily argue that Lavine has the advantage given his outside shooting and the fact that he's more efficient than Butler is on offense. But of course, Butler has the defensive edge over Lavine. And then Lonzo Ball, who you didn't even mention, is vastly better than Rondo when he was on the Bulls. And of course, that also doesn't even factor in Vucevic is far greater of a player than Robin Lopez, who was the center for the Bulls at the time. So yes, you are wrong. The Bulls lineup that we have now will outperform the Bulls of the 2017 team significantly, in my opinion. And then finally, let's do one more, and this one comes to us from Tony Vaccaro. Chicago Bulls will add a top 5 player in free agency in the next 3 years due to a winning culture, major market, and Acme's aggressiveness to win. So this is exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to, some of these media reporters and analysts who are quote unquote baffled by the Bulls' moves of going all in for the Bulls to just not even compete for a title this upcoming season. This isn't about competing for a title this upcoming season. This isn't about just trying to bring in talent to make Zach LaVine happy. No, this is more so to do with the fact that the front office is signaling that they're changing the culture and reputation of this franchise and that they're building a winning culture by being aggressive and bringing in relevant talent that is ready to compete. And free agents, top-level free agents, they take note of that kind of thing. And when you take those risks and the team does well, superstar-level talent and are much more inclined to come play for Chicago, a city that is already a huge market and now has a winning pedigree based on what the new front office is building. So yes, I agree with your take here. I don't think it's really that hot of a take, to be honest, because if the Bulls can show this season that they mean business, they make a playoff run, and they start turning some heads that this team has something going, you bet a top 5 player in the league may look to come here, even if that means that Vucevic and DeRozan with expiring contracts at the time, 3 years from now, and that they're not with the team, this front office will do what they can to build around you and build a winning team regardless. You don't have to have those doubts like you did before on whether this front office was really in fact focused on winning or just being cheap and actually knew what the hell they were doing. I'll end it there for this week though, guys. Appreciate all of those who left their takes, even if I wasn't able to get to yours. Be sure to include your hot takes in the comments below to be featured in next week's video. As always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.